Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I'm here with some winter reading recommendations. No TBR because I'll be asking for you for some suggestions later. I've also given myself the sort of mission of doing this without choosing any books with winter in the title. And at some point, oddly, I want to do the opposite where I read some books during the winter with winter in the title, but we'll come again to that bit a little bit later. I'm a little bit gobby. I'm a little bit all over the place because I'm filming this in the lead up to my mock exams for British Sign Language later today. So by the time this goes live, they'll be happening. Wish me luck. So I'm not going to edit this video very much. It's just going to be a top and tailer after I've chatted and see, there we go. I would normally either zoom in on that or do something else. But yeah, I'm just going to chat through these 10 books that are wintry to me. That might be a odd decision to some of you, but we'll just run with it. So I'm going to start off with two books by two of my favourite authors that both give winter to me in my memory of them, and that's kind of the general consensus with a lot of these books, although some of them are books that I think are in genres that are particularly good for winter. But these first two, like I said, just bring back winter as a mood for me. The first of those, and this is the proof edition, is Kate Atkinson's Life After Life. And this is a book that I adore, and Kate Atkinson is an author that I adore. I've seen she's got a new Jackson Brodie book coming out next year, and I'm very excited for that. And her short story collection, Normal Rules Don't Apply, is a book that I read earlier this year and loved, as I did Shrines of Gaiety, her latest novel, which is a Patreon book club pick, and lots of us really enjoyed that. If you want to join in with the next Patreon book club, it's going to be in January. Links to my Patreon down below. Moving swiftly on to what this book is about. Well, it starts off in a blustery snowstorm, which is why this makes me think of winter, because snow, winter, well, in this part of the world, they are sort of hand in hand, and we all sort of dream of a white Christmas. I'm not going to burst into song, but I was tempted. I should also say, though, on that note, only one of the books that I've chosen is Christmas related, because yes, Christmas is in winter, but I feel like a lot of focus goes on to Christmas books rather than wintry books. If you agree, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't agree, let me know in the comments down below. But back to this book. So it starts off in a blustery storm where child is born, Ursula Todd, and dies in 1910. There's another storm, she dies, and we follow on from lots of different times where Ursula Todd is born. She might live for hours, she might live for days, weeks, months, years, it goes on. But at some point she dies, and then she goes through history, and it looks at how one person can change history, be it on a big scale or be it on a smaller sort of family drama level. There's a fantastic family in this, a brilliant matriarch who I love. And it's just a book that captured me in so many ways. I mean, partly that's because Kate Atkinson's writing is just wonderful. The way she writes character and plot is delightful. She's got this dark wryness, which again, is kind of dark yet warm, which kind of is a wintry feel for me, and I just think it's brilliant. And if you haven't read any Kate Atkinson, do. At some point maybe I'll do a whole video on why I love Kate Atkinson. I did do a video with Kate Atkinson that I will link down below. I've said Kate Atkinson a lot. Kate Atkinson, Life After Life, very wintry book. It doesn't stay all wintry, but it has that opening wintry feel that lingers throughout the rest of the pages. Then we have a book that again isn't sort of technically wintry, but it's set somewhere snowy, which to me evokes winter, and the cover I think is pretty wintry-tastic, and that's Rose Tremain's The Gustav Sonata. And this is about two young boys. First of all, we have Gustav, who is living in Switzerland, which is neutral during the wars, and we follow him after the death of his father, and he's living with his mum, who just treats him with real indifference and is very cold to him. So there's a cold feeling throughout this book, and it's how he sort of copes with loneliness until he meets another young boy called Anton. They become friends. Anton has a very different background to Gustav, and that's something that's really looked at, especially with the whole Switzerland being neutral and the war going on in the background. And this book just builds to the most beautiful yet heartbreaking I don't know, climax, and I just thought it was utterly wonderful. And Rose Tremain is like Kate Atkinson, a favourite author of mine. I have not read a dud book by either of them, and they're authors that I read quite sparingly. And I know Mum's talked about this with other authors, but I think she feels the same about Kate Atkinson and Rose Tremain. You don't want to have read all of their work, yet at the same time, every time I see one of their books that I've not read, I'm like, oh gosh, I want to read that now. But you have to sort of eke them out. Anyway, I thought this was fantastic. There is skating, because there is on cover, as you can see. And I think it's a brilliant book about friendship and love, and also hope and how our hearts can melt. There we go. That gave it a wintry analogy. The next two books are basically books that feature snow a lot, but kind of continuously are set in snowy, wintry scenes, whereas the previous ones, they've just got that wintry feel about them because there is snow at point in them. The first of those is a book that I've mentioned a lot on this channel before, and will carry on doing so. I mean, it seems odd to do, like, I think I did one of these last year, but it almost seems like repeating yourself feels a bit, but actually I've realised with BookTube, one of the downsides is sometimes you don't get to talk about certain books you love enough. It feels like it's the books right now, or just recently, or just ahead. And this is a book that I recommended for years. It's The Snowchild by Eowyn Ivey. Very excited that there is a new Eowyn Ivey book coming in 2025. Her second novel is also really, really wintry, but this one, it's about Jack and Mabel, who have tried to have children but can't. So one day they build a child out of snow, just hoping that it comes to life, and it does. And that should be all joy, but it's much more complex than that. And the way that Eowyn Ivey does what she does with this book, I think, is utterly, utterly brilliant. And this lovely edition even has a quote from me in it there, because I loved it that much. I hope I was pointing to my quote. I think I was, yeah. I said, Eowyn Ivey creates a story at once fantastical and ethereal, a timeless novel. And I think that is very much the case. This is so much about love and yearning, but not maybe yearning in a sense that we're always used to, because it's not really romantical. This is more about familial. And yeah, I just think it is phenomenal. Then we have a bonkers book. And I always like me a bonkers book. I'm actually quite shocked that I haven't read this author's next book, which has been published here in the UK, that it's in translation. This is translated, I should say, by Lola M. Rogers from the Finnish, and the book is The Rabbit-Back Literature Society by Pasi Ilmari Jakazelanian. Wow, I hope I said that right. And as you can see from the cover, very snowy indeed. And we follow Ella, who is working in a small town, and she is a literary teacher, but she wants to write. And there is this infamous society, the Rabbit-Back Literature Society, that nobody is ever invited to until suddenly she is, after the disappearance of one of its members, who literally disappeared in the snow. And it's not your usual snowstorm, but I don't want to ruin it, but it's a brilliant, brilliant scene. And I just loved this. I loved the fact that it was all about what's going on secretly behind the doors of a small town. It's kind of got that cult feel to it. It's kind of exciting, but also quite anxiety inducing. And yeah, I just thought it was a really, really, really fantastical book, and quite unlike anything I've read, which is why I'm mildly annoyed at myself that I haven't read his latest, but maybe that's one for next year. In fact, I'm going to say that will definitely be one for next year, or maybe it's one for this winter, which will be going into next year. Although, I can't remember who I admitted this to the other day, but they were laughing at me quite a lot. I, in my head, in fact, I know who it was the team at Storyhouse. I, in my head, often think that winter is from the 1st of December to the 25th of December. Well, no, let's say the 31st of December, and then January is the beginning of spring. I have really odd sort of dates in my brain for the seasons. So for example, spring in my head, like I said, is January until April. Then we're in summer until probably about mid to end of August, and then it's autumn until December. So anyway, there we go. But this, bonkers, brilliant, would definitely recommend, as I would all the others. Then we have a romance of sorts. Now, I don't read a lot of romance fiction, But this, as Val McDermid says on the cover, has the drive of a thriller but the imagery of a romance, and I think that's very true. It is Carol by Patricia Highsmith, and this is set around the festive season actually, so I guess that's why it's got that Christmassy vibe to it particularly, especially as partly it's set in a department store where we meet Therese. I think it's Therese. Yeah, Therese. And one day she serves a woman called Carol who is a unhappily married, about to divorce woman, and something sparks between the two. But even though there's this romance and desire within it, there's also something deeply like sinister, and I think that's Patricia Highsmith. I should say this originally was published as The Price of Salt, and it was not published as under the name of Patricia Highsmith. I think it was actually a pseudonym that she, well, it would be, that would make sense. I was going to say posthumously. That's not true. That's me getting my P words mixed up. Anyway, so yeah, it was The Price of Salt under a pseudonym. And because people thought that, you know, this lesbian book would be too shocking, and because Patricia Highsmith was so known as a crime writer, it might do a disservice to her career. But this does very much have the feels of a thriller about it, even though it's really about a romance and relationship. And that, I think, is quite addictive. And I do think there is something about the winter where, I mean, I love sinister books all year round, but there is something particularly delicious about curling up with a book that's got a bit of menace amongst all of the festivities, which is probably why festive thrillers do so well at this time of year. But yeah, I thought this was fantastic. And if you haven't read any Highsmith, read this, but also do go and read her thrillers because they are flipping brilliant. She writes about these twisted little characters, and that's how she describes them. That's not me being patronising, and kind of makes you feel for them even though you really, really shouldn't. I don't know how she does it. It's some kind of wizardry. Anyway, there we go. Carol by Patricia Highsmith. A book that is dystopic and all about sort of ice and snow, so therefore I thought I would include it. And also I think this has got a brilliant wintry cover, and again is an author that I really, really love. I haven't talked about him very much. It's Conan Jones, and this is Stillicide, and this is set in the not too distant future where water has run out and there are ice docks where people are trying to get them to cool, but they don't, and so there is this shortage. There's even trains with water being sort of really delicately shipped. So what hasn't run out has become really scarce, and so we kind of follow various different characters around all of that, and it's told through lots of little vignettes, which is something that I really love, so you can curl up and read it in like one afternoon. But it's a book that will haunt you afterwards and leave you thinking about a lot, but hopefully is a book that if you've not read any Conan Jones, you will go on to do so, because honestly, he's a fantastic writer. And again, another author that maybe I should do some author spotlight videos next year. Let me know with your thoughts on that. But yeah, Stillicide would highly recommend for something a bit dystopic and different. I mentioned hauntings, and there seems to be a focus on Halloween for ghost stories, but traditionally, well, particularly with the Victorians, it was a real tradition to have a ghost story around Christmas Eve. And most of the short stories, most of the ghost stories in this collection of novellas centre around someone telling you the tale at Christmas Eve. It's The Woman in Black and Other Ghost Stories by Susan Hill. I'm hoping to see The Woman in Black over the Christmas period. It is such a great play, and it really, really, really makes you jump and properly freaks you out. And it's just, but it's that sort of delicious being freaked out in the comfort of a old theatre. Anyway, darkness of an old theatre. But yeah, so The Woman in Black is the one that I would particularly recommend, but if you get this, you get several others, I think, including Dolly, which is pretty sinister. And also, I mean, I just opened the page and it says literally at the beginning of The Woman in Black Christmas Eve. So yeah, it's so funny because The Woman in Black is a book that me and Mum really, really get into, what's the word? I don't know, a bit elbows out about, because I love it and she doesn't. So we get quite, I don't know, we've debated the merits of this book a lot. She's taught it for English, I think, quite a few times and not really enjoyed it. But for me, this is like the perfect revenge ghost story as we head out to, I think it's Ilmarsh House, which is out at sea, and you can only get to it at certain points when the tide is out, and obviously get back in the same way. And it's about a solicitor who goes to sort out the estate of Mrs. Drablow, and it's just fabulous. I really, really love it. I also really like the film that Daniel Radcliffe was in too. I didn't like the sequel though. But yeah, so there we go. We have that one. Now, I mentioned Victorian and sort of Gothic, and I do think that the winter is great for actually Victorian classics. I haven't included any of those. There is something about a classic. I saw Anna, and I think Jen said the same thing, possibly even my mum, because they've all done winter videos. I'll link them down below. But there is something about this time of year that makes you want to head to a big chunky classic. Maybe it's because you, well, if you're like me, you want to head to a big chunky jumper every single day. So yeah, it's something that you had to, but I thought I would instead choose a historical novel set in the Victorian era, because I think also those are perfect for this time of year and for the whole of the year, but there is something a little bit extra about them at this time of year. And so I chose one of my favourites of recent years, and that is The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sara Collins. I have not watched the adaptation of this, but I really want to. And for me, that's another thing that screams winter. I mean, it used to be that you would curl up on Sunday and watch a episode of a particular series, but I think it's much more prevalent, or it certainly is in this household, that on a Sunday you want to curl up and watch the entire series of something, which is what I plan on doing with this. And so, yeah, I thought I'd mention it. It's about Franny Langton, and she is in prison for the supposed murder of her master and mistress, who she was a slave of. And we go back to her childhood, how she ends up coming to the household that she does, and the relationship that starts within that household between her and someone else. No spoilers, not giving you any, no. But it's absolutely brilliant, and the way Sara Collins writes, I cannot wait for whatever she releases next. I mean, it's about time. Sara, if you see this, where is it? Where is book 2? Because I need it. But yeah, I just thought this was absolutely incredible. And again, one that I talked about a lot when it came out, but haven't done so much since. And I think that's something that I would like to bring 2 videos more going forward. So we have that one. And then on to the penultimate book, which is, again, a bit of a random choice. I might say not as random as the, although there are reasons for the final one. But this is a book that, because there is a film that it links to, that I think is an absolute Christmas classic, and is the story. This story is known so well because of a musical and soon to be a film. But I think if you've not read the book, you really need to read the book, even if you've seen the musical. Let's just get to it, shall we? It is Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. And I love this book. I remember being first introduced to this book by a colleague I had when I worked front of house on Bombay Dreams in the West End. And he was like, oh, you should really read this book, Wicked. There's a musical coming of it. It's probably going to be quite big. And it's about the Wicked Witch of the West and Oz from a completely different perspective. Like, we follow the Wicked Witch to college. We follow her to etc. So the world of Oz is seen in this incredibly detailed way, and Gregory Maguire is a master of doing it. And I was a bit like, oh yeah, whatever. And then Newly, thank you Newly if you ever see this, because I have not heard from Newly for years, but lent me his copy, which was at the time one of these imported American editions, because it wasn't even available in the UK way back when, before the musical came out in the UK, because then, ironically, after Bombay Dreams and Saturday Night Fever, the next show that came into the theatre was Wicked, which is still at the Apollo Vic where I used to work. Anyway, so I started it and I just couldn't stop reading it. I absolutely love this book. I think it is phenomenal. It's one of my all-time faves. And again, one that I have not spoken about. The way, as I was saying, Gregory Maguire creates this world of Oz and gives you this insight into Elphaba and how she became the Wicked Witch of the West is just brilliant. So would highly recommend that one, as I would. And I said this was a left field choice, but it is set at Christmas. And it's the only book that I'm mentioning that is, like I said, set at Christmas. So I suppose The Woman in Black starts at Christmas Eve, but really is set before that. And this book is set at Christmas in Australia, so therefore it is hot. And it is The Weekend by Charlotte Wood, who is an author who I absolutely love and is becoming a firm favourite author with me. Her her new book, Stoneyard Devotional, is one of my most anticipated reads. I have it on the shelves. I think I'm going to read it either at the very beginning of 2024 or in the Betwixtmas phase, where I might head to some 2024 books. If not, sprinkle some maybe in the lead up to 2024. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about winter, and this book is my final recommendation. This is about a group of friends who go to one of their sadly deceased friend's house not long after her death and meet together for the first time. And without her there, the cracks in their intertwining relationships and friendship really start to show. I mean, there is also a dog that, is elderly and is having issues that also throws a little bit of tension into the mix, as well as I think I remember a very handsome man. Honestly, all these things are always a bit tricky, aren't they? Handsome men, elderly dogs with issues, and friendships and how they all intertwine or sometimes don't. Anyway, it makes for a really interesting read about friendship. Also, I think it's a wonderful book about older women that shows them in a different light than stereotypes in fiction or even in life quite often do, which I really, really enjoyed. It shows their wants and their needs, and I don't mean that in a sexual way, although there is a little bit of that, but just what their desires still are, and the fact that they're not dead and people have sort of written them off, and yeah, but also the importance of friendships that have lasted a long time, but the complexities within them and how tricky they can be. I just think this does all of that really, really well, set in a sunny Christmas, which to me is the most bonkers idea. However, I'm sure it feels the same if you're in Australia and you're thinking, wow, you guys have, Christmas where it's snowing and stuff. Anyway, that is my final wintry recommendation. I would love to hear some wintry recommendations from you. I'm very aware that list was incredibly white, with the exception of Sara Collins. And so if you've got any wintry books by authors of colour, I would really, really, really love to hear about those. They don't have to be Christmas set. It could just be that they're wintry, either in their sort of attitudes, I guess, in terms of slightly colder books, both in terms of temperature and just, when a book can be a bit cold, but in a good way. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does. But yeah, they could also be set at winter, but I'm not so fussed if they're set at Christmas or not. I was going to say, if you would like any recommendations for any family members on the subject of Christmas, I'm going to be at Harris and Harris Bookshop this weekend. I'm going to be a bookseller all weekend, which I'm very, very, very excited about. And myself and Kate of Harris and Harris are going to film a video recommending just some books that we think would be great in a Christmas stocking, but also any requests that you have of recommendations for family members, leave them in the comments down below. I've already had a few, but I would love some more. And I'll also ask out on Instagram too. But yeah, that is something that I'm really, really, really excited about. But I would love your wintry reading recommendations. I'm trying to think of any obvious ones that maybe people might recommend that I already read, like Winter by Ali Smith. No, I think that's the only one that I didn't. Well, there are a couple with winter in the title that I just didn't put, is it A Spell of Winter by Helen Dunmore? But I felt like that wasn't as wintry as the title suggested. Anyway, I could go off on a tangent for ages, but like I said, would love to hear if you've got any requests for recommendations for family members for the festive season for the video that me and Kate are going to do at Harris and Harris Bookshops. Would also love to hear what wintry books you would recommend to me, especially any books by authors of colour. That would be fabulous. And I will see you in another... No, I'm not saying that yet. Thank you for watching. It's always a delight to spend time with you. Carry on the conversation down below, like I said, with those requests and recommendations. And I will see you in another video No, I won't. Also, if you want more Savage Read shenanigans, you can head down to my Instagram, my Patreon, where I'm doing Vlogmas, I should have forgot to say that, and my artist formerly known as Twitter, my wishlist, all those kind of things. And I will see you, I'm really going now, in another video very, very soon. Bye.